The first 3 businesses that I started grew so quickly that they literally had me rethinking the meaning of money. 18 months ago, I was an electrical engineer in my first year making an $80,000 salary. But of my 3 businesses, in the past 12 months, business number 1 has done $300,000 in revenue. Business number 2 has done $386,000 in revenue. And then the third business that came out, business number 3, that did $736,000 in revenue this year alone. And so in this video, I'm gonna show you the most powerful principles that led to me making what felt like a lifetime's worth of money in literally just 12 months so that you can do the exact same thing. Let's start with principle number 1. You cannot make money if nobody knows you exist. And there is so many studies to back this up, and that's why it is my first, most foundational principle. And the first thing that you have to overcome if you're going to take advantage of this principle and put it into practice in your business, whatever that business may be, is overcoming your fear of rejection and overcoming your fear of what other people think of you. If I was to boil down the mindset shifts that I have had over the past years that have involved me getting to the point where I am now, one of the top things on that list is that I stopped caring what other people thought. Because if you look back at the people that laughed at me when I first got a microphone set up to do YouTube videos, right? And first jumped into the real estate game coming from scratch and all these different things. When you look back at those people, if I had put more value on what those people thought of me than I put on the actual thing that I saw and knew and believed was going to work, then guess what? I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Right? Nothing would have changed if I had put more value on that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you convince yourself that you are doing so much more than you actually are when it comes to letting people know what you do. As a lot of you guys might know, my primary business that I just broke down for you guys, my primary business is transactional funding. And transactional funding is an incredible business when done correctly, but if nobody knows that you're doing it, what do you expect is going to happen? Right? You can't just hide under a rock, sit in the corner, sit on the sidelines, and expect anything to change. And the biggest problem with that is that you and I'm saying this to myself too, we convince ourselves that people know what we're doing when we really don't. One of my favorite studies that I've seen with some actual data behind this is an interview, like a poll that Alex Hormozi did on his social media, asking people if they know about his books. Now, I don't know about you, but Alex Hormozi's books, $100 Million Offers and $100 Million Leads, are 2 of my all-time favorite books, and they haven't even been out that long. But when he ran that poll, guess what? From what I saw, 70% of people didn't even know that his books existed. This is one of the most powerful business influences on the planet, and 70% of people that were following him, this isn't randos, right? This isn't people on the street. This is people actively following his page. They didn't even know that his books existed. And so in his mind, and this is his words, not mine, he said, man, I felt like I was promoting my books so much. He talks about them in every video, blah, blah, blah. And yet 70% of people still didn't know that he even had them. So what does that mean for you, right? Whether you're getting into the transactional funding business, you're in the real estate space at all, or you're doing something completely different, or a mixture of all of the above, people don't know. And they will never know. That's why marketing is at the top of every single business funnel I've ever seen. And then it was the top principle that changed my life over the last 12 months, because even though I didn't know what the heck I was doing, I just started letting people know what my plans were. I told them what I wanted to do. I talked about it in the future. I talked about it as if it was now. I went to meetups. I went to events. I got on phone calls, podcasts, and I talked about what I wanted to be doing. Why? Because I was planting seeds, right? I was just planting seeds. I was letting people know what I expected of myself and how they could work with me and how I could help with them in the future, because guess what? I want to be the person that comes to top of mind whenever somebody needs a deal funded. That's what I want to do. And the only way to do that, it's not to badger people. It's not to send them DMs. It's not to call them all the time and bother them. It's for them to know what it is I do. And the more people that know what you do, the more success you will have just by sheer volume, by definition of actually gaining traction, right? Gaining momentum. If you can increase your volume, then you can have a crappy close rate, right? You can be doing very little, but if you have that volume, then you're still gonna do more than if you didn't have it. And that's what's most important to understand in this scenario, is that you have to keep those levels up in order to do everything else. And so principle number one is that if other people do not know what it is you're doing, then you're not gonna go anywhere fast. All right, now let's jump into principle number two, and that is that your competition is not that hard to beat. I am sorry to break it to you guys, but the competition these days, not as tough as maybe it used to be. I don't even know, but what I can tell you is that if you look at people's websites, if you look at their systems, their processes, their communication, across the board, on average, they suck. It is not that hard to beat people. All the time, people come to me and say, well, how am I supposed to get deals when there's, 10,000 other people in the pool looking to get deals? Guys, it's so simple. Outdoing your competition can be as simple as responding in under 30 minutes. Doing preparation before phone calls, before speaking to people, having actual systems in place, having proof that what you say you can do, you can actually do. Like, that's it. It's that simple to overcome. I was having a conversation the other day with somebody that was saying, how am I supposed to outdo my competition when I don't have as much proof and credibility, right? And I thought it was a great question. Because it's something that I love to talk about, and it's something that I used to a T with this principle over the last year to do everything that I've been able to pull off some level of success, or whatever you want to call it. And that's that when you look at yourself. So let's say you've got a small business and a big business, or maybe no experience and a bunch of experience, right? This is a tactic I learned that I've been able to use a ton over this past year, and I've actually seen both sides of it now, which makes it, I think, an even better analogy. So on the one hand, maybe you're just getting started in business, right? You're new, you're small, you don't have any clients, maybe you only have a few clients. That was me when I was getting started, right? And on the other hand, you've got a business that's a powerhouse, right? Unlimited funding, people working for them, right? Better systems, whatever it may be. They're bigger. You always have an advantage, and you can always beat your competition if you know what you have that they don't. And if you don't know that, then you just have to take the time to figure that out. But here's what I mean. Let's say you're the small business, you're just getting started. Your superpower is that you can be on the phone in 30 seconds. You can respond to an email the second it comes in, a DM the second it comes in. You have quick communication with people. They're speaking directly with you, right? Not somebody that works for them. They're speaking directly with you at the time, at the moment that it matters. And that is a huge advantage, right? You can be quick on your feet. You can change things. You can be more personable. You can get on more calls, the whole nine. If you have a big business, you do not have that. So the small business person like me was saying, hey, look, these other guys, yeah, they may charge a little bit less, but guess what? You're gonna get handed off to somebody that's on the bottom of the totem pole, right? That doesn't even know what's going on. They're gonna take a day to respond to you, and every question you ask, they're gonna have to send it up to the top and have a meeting and find the answer and bring it back. And by the time they get all that done, you won't even know if you're gonna be able to get the deal done. You're not gonna be speaking with the person funding your deals directly, blah, 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 right? On the other hand, when you work with me, I can be on the phone in 30 seconds. This is my personal cell phone number. You are the most important client to me. You see the difference? It's not that hard to beat your competition, even if they're way better than you. And you can flip that script too, right? This works both ways. It's really cool because you can always have the advantage. So from the top side, you can say, yeah, those guys, they may be able to get on the phone with you, but they don't have unlimited funds. They don't have experience. They don't have the proof, right? There's upsides to both sides. But at a minimum, you can outdo your competition simply by, first of all, preparing, knowing what it is you're talking about, knowing who it is you're talking to and what your objectives are, right? Being just slightly above average, having a professional website, and that can be as simple as, a free website template, but just something. That process alone allows you to outdo your competition. And for me, with this principle specifically, the way that I was able to do it was responding quickly to people, having my systems in place, and literally just having confidence. Even on things that I may not have known everything about, just having the confidence to even talk about them, to even bring them up and have clarity about the process that's going to take place. When it comes to money and business and people giving you money, right? You need them to trust you and have confidence in you as a person, as somebody that's going to deliver on whatever it is you say you're going to deliver on. You need people to be able to trust you in those instances. And if they can't, they're probably going to move on to somebody else. So principle number 2 is that you have to be able to outdo your competition through sheer brain power and will, and actually just taking the extra 30 seconds or 30 minutes of preparation that it takes to outdo them, because guys, it's just not that hard. Now, principle number 3 is that people don't want fancy. They just want solutions. This might ruffle a little bit of feathers right now in the age of 2025, where AI is a term used for everything and actually correlates to very little of the things it's used with. But people just want solutions. They want things to get done. So if I'm trying to build my business, right, and I can say this across all 3 of the businesses that I've built, I can add all the bells and whistles and the fancy stuff, and that's going to grab onto the people that have shiny object syndrome, right? You are going to get their attention. So if you're somebody, and I know a few people probably that won't watch this video that are like this, that's just trying to make a quick buck, then you're just going to create new things constantly. You're not going to care about any of the other stuff you do. You just want to make a quick buck off the same people over and over with your new shiny object thing. And that's great. If that's how you want to build your business, great. But the reality is, real customers, solid customers, they just want solutions. They want simplicity in their solutions. You don't need your website to have 30,000 buttons on it with all these other options, right? If you just have one big fat button in the middle that says whatever you're doing, perfect, right? If you go to my website right now, and by the way, I've made these changes, right? I've made all of these mistakes and I've learned through these principles. That's why I'm sharing them with you. If you want simplicity, go to my website right now. There's just one big green button that says get money, right? Or get funding. That's it. There's only one simple solution. When they work with me, they have very clear instructions on what to expect, what's going on. When you read what I do, you should be able to read it at the level of like a 5th grader or even lower than that, right? If you can read my emails, my social media, right? Even me talking on these videos like this, if you can't even understand what I'm saying or have a clear picture of where I'm trying to go with something, then it's going to be incredibly difficult to work with me. And people don't want these words that they have to freaking Google, you know, to figure out what it is you're doing. They just want to know what they need to do in order to solve whatever problem they have. And most of the people I work with are either trying to solve the problem of getting funding for their deals or making enough money to quit their jobs. And so I am so far from perfect at this, but I have been striving over the past 12 months to simplify everything that I do so that it can fit into that shell. I personally believe 2 of the biggest words that are going to be spoken of in 2025 in the entrepreneurship space is simplification and focus. Because if you can do those 2 things and you can do them well, then it doesn't matter. You don't need 15 products, right? This is like the classic story of somebody who creates one good product, right? I don't even know what a good example of this is, but like you create one good product and then you try to create 15 other products around that product, and they all do a little bit, right? But instead, you could have just focused on that one simple product and gotten the job done. I can create 10 different versions of my software, right? For different people in different niches at different times, but that's complicating things. If instead I can narrow my software down to just do what's needed to get the person from where they're at to the goal that they actually have, then they're going to have less misunderstandings, there's going to be less technical support, there's going to be less confusion, and there's going to be more actually getting things done. And so principle number 3 is just staying focused on simplification and clarity, letting people know what you do, how you can do it, and giving them the clear steps along the way to actually understand so that they know, hey, you know what? This is actually going to solve my problem. If you can do that, you're going to be in a good spot. Principle number 4, the proof is in the pudding. It is just going to reign true forever. Nothing ever beats proof. If you have proof, not saying what you can do, but proof that you can do what you say you're going to do or say you can do, that you will always go 10 times farther. And one of the biggest reasons that I've been able to grow my businesses this year is because I first built proof, right? With my transactional funding business, now I teach other people how to fund deals, how to make $10, $20, $50,000 a month. But how did they entrust me to do that? Because for the first year, all I did was that. I just did the thing, right? I was funding deals. I was learning the processes. I was making mistakes. I was losing money. And I was right here talking about it to you guys the entire time. And so because of that, by the time I got to the end of that year, I now had a year's worth and hundreds, over 100 deals worth of proof backing up what I do. And then why did more people start coming to me to learn how I do what I do? Because now I had other people giving proof on top of my proof that what I say I can do is actually true. Now, there's two sides of the equation here, because a lot of you guys watching this may not feel like you have proof. And one of the things that I would ask you is, how are you defining what proof actually is, right? I can give you the proof of how much money I've made, right? At the beginning of this video, I showed you how much money I've made. I can give you the proof of contracts that are signed or HUD statements or whatever else it may be, right? But I can also give you the proof that I wake up every morning at 5 o'clock, that I work 14, 16-hour days every day, that I don't take days off, right? I can give you that proof too. I can give you proof that I've posted on YouTube every single week for over a year straight. I can give you proof that I'm in the gym every morning, right? I can give you all of these different things that are proof that I am consistent, right? That I can work hard, that I can do what I say I can do in these different scenarios. And so even if you're newer to the funding business or whatever your business might be, even if you're newer to those things, guess what? You still can have proof and generate proof through your actions. And if you just don't have jack squat for proof, then here's a really simple way to build up your proof. Go do things. Just do stuff. That's it. I have so much proof. It feels crazy how much proof I have now to talk about what I do and to talk about the success. And I didn't sit here 12 months ago and say, this is what I'm gonna do to develop enough proof to show people. No, that's not what I did at all. It was one foot in front of the other. I did not know the end goal. This was not my intention, was to end up here, right? It was not. But I knew that if I took action and I stayed consistent, then proof would develop over time, either through my successes or through my failures, right? Guess what? Failure is great proof. Me sharing that I've lost over 6 figures in my funding business with people, that's incredible proof that I know what not to do, right? That's how that happens. You got to do something first, and then you can have the proof to actually talk about it. So you have to put an overemphasis on the proof that you have. And I encourage everybody watching this video to think about, what are you trying to sell? What are you trying to make money off of? And what do you have to stand behind it to generate proof? And guess what? A lot of proof you can't just go generate tomorrow, right? It takes time. Proof is a time-driven metric, and that's why it's so valuable to people, right? I can't show proof that I've done hundreds of deals in a week. The value is in the fact that I've been doing it for a long time. And so they can see that depth, right? And the width of the proof that I'm showing to determine its validity. So proof is in the pudding every time, guys. You have to take advantage of the proof that you have, or generate the proof that you don't have, so that you can go 10 times further. And here's one little nugget on proof, and that's that if you don't have proof, that's fine. Borrow other people's. It's not that hard. All you have to do is take whatever your end goal is, figure out what your deficiencies are, and then find the people that can fill those roles for you, right? Who do you know? Who are you working with? What community are you involved in where you can use other people's proof to share evidence for yourself? For example, tons of people work with me to fund their deals. They don't have a ton of money in the bank. They don't have a ton of skill or experience in funding deals. But who do they have? Me, right? They work with me and use me as their proof on the funding side, and their proof becomes, I'm quick to respond. I know what I'm doing. I have the people in place to get this done, right? You can always either one, fold under the inability to have proof, or B, you can go figure it out, right? Find the people that are going to fill the gaps that you don't have, and then guess what? When people come work with me, as the easy example, guess what they get after they start working with me? Their own proof. And then they don't work with me. They don't have to work with me anymore, right? They can go do this stuff themselves because they filled those gaps through action. So don't just sit there, go do something about it. Principle number 5, do more and then do even more. You are not doing nearly as much as you think you are. And I'm saying this to you as much as I'm saying it to myself. There is so much more effort, work, accountability, discipline that can go into the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, right? People all the time come to me, I only have 30 minutes a day to do this stuff, right? Okay, first of all, I'm willing to bet that if you have those 30 minutes, you're probably spending 15 of them doing something that's not actually productive anyway, right? That's number one. And number two, do you really only have 30 minutes? For maybe like 0.1% of the people I've met, that's the case. And if that's you, then you continue doing what you're doing, figuring out how to use the time that you have. But for most of us, we're just not doing that much. And the more that you feel like you're doing, you're gonna continue to learn that there is still so much more to go. And I'm talking literally about the volume of work that you're putting into things, right? One of my favorite examples you may have heard before is that I had 2 people that were working on getting into the funding business, right? And the first person came to me and they said, I feel stuck. I feel like I'm not gaining enough traction. And I said, okay, well, what's your inputs, right? What are the measurables? What's been going on in the background? Well, you know, I've been doing a lot. I've been reaching out to 10 people every single day. 10 people I've been reaching out to every single day. And I said, cool. And then I talked to somebody else that same day that was finding success, right? And I said, hey, I got somebody that's struggling. I want to hear what you're doing so I can figure out, you know, what they might be missing. And they said, yeah, well, you know, I've been reaching out to 100 people a day, and I've been doing that every day now for the past 3 months. So I thought about that and I thought, okay, 100 people a day versus 10 people a day. So 10 people a day means that you reach out to 300 people a month, right? So in 1 month, person number 1 was doing the same amount of work that person number 2 was doing in 3 days. 3 days versus a month, the sheer volume, right? Now, the other aspect of that was that person number 1 was doing those 10 outreaches. They had only been doing it for a month. And the person that was doing 100 had been doing it for 3 months. So they had been doing it 3 times longer, and they had been doing 10 times as much as the other person. That first person was convinced that they were doing a lot when they were at an order of magnitude of 30 times less effective than the other person was. And by the way, this other person was spending an hour, maybe 90 minutes a day on what they were doing, right? We're not talking about the difference between 10 minutes and 10 hours, right? Those volumes of magnitude can go up so quickly without necessarily going crazy on the amount of time you spend. But if you are somebody that says, you know, it's my dream to make $10,000 a month. You want to know what it looked like for me this year to do more work? It was spending hours every day researching what other people had done, watching videos, taking notes, right? Learning from other people, traveling to events every single morning, every single evening. When I was getting started, I was waking up before going to work at like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes to go through and make sure I responded to all the messages I had sent, to make sure my email inbox was clear, to make sure that I had a clear plan for the day. That was me doing more. And the bigger thing was that some mornings I didn't know what I was doing, right? Some mornings, some evenings, I didn't know what I was doing. But what I did know is that I wasn't going to stop. I was going to continue doing more and more, because in that process, the rest took care of itself. So if you're somebody that is struggling to know what to do, then solve that problem. Get the accountability, the community, the people around you, so that you are able to then flip that switch and go do more, because that principle will change everything about everything if you just go do more and then you do even more. Okay, principle number 6 now is generating positive word of mouth. Holy crap, what a breakthrough it is for other people to be talking positively about you and your business. When you are getting started, time is not the constraint, right? You have time because you're trading time for money. But as you've probably heard from people that are a lot more successful than I am, you can't continue to trade time for money if you want to move up, right? You have to unlink those two things. And one of the simplest forms, there's a lot of ways to do that, but one of the simplest forms and principles that I followed this year is having other people refer what I do to other people for me. And guess what? If you do it correctly, you don't even have to pay those people. Although setting something up to pay people for referrals, is also solid, but I've never even done that, right? But if you just have other people talking positively about what you do, what a freaking game changer, right? In the transactional funding space, a lot of times the deals that I find are just on social media. But guess what? These days, I'm a little bit busier, right? I'm doing these videos, I'm creating courses, I'm speaking with title companies, filling out contracts, I'm doing all this stuff. I don't always see something right when it's posted, but guess who does? Other people. And one of the craziest things started happening to me about 6 months ago is that I followed principle number 1. I started letting everybody know what I did. And then I started doing it well, right? I became better than my competition. Principle number 2 or 3, I think. Became better than my competition. I started doing these things. And guess what? Those posts that I used to see saying, hey, I need money to fund this deal, I wasn't seeing those anymore. But other people were seeing them and sending them to me, or commenting on those posts and saying, hey, Ryan Schroep is your guy. Go talk to Ryan Schroep. That's the person that's going to solve your problem. I didn't even do anything. I was like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. People are going out and for free finding deals for me just based off of my prior performance. Crazy. The magnitude, just I hope you can grasp how powerful and strong it is to have positive reviews from other people. Now on the flip side, negative reviews, like one negative review from people, you are screwed, right? If I went online and on a Facebook group or on Skool or something and said, hey, I need $100,000 for this project, and the first comment was like, don't do it, this guy stole my money or he screwed up my deal. If you have that happen, then guess what? You're screwed, right? That is a horrible scenario to be in. And that's the crazy thing about reviews from other people is that you can have a million good ones, but one bad one can destroy everything. But on the same light, right, I've talked about when you do get those good ones and you start stacking those up and you have other people, you have an army of people going out and helping build your business for you, what an incredible tool that can be for you. And guess how you do that? It's principle number 1 and actually executing, right? Letting people know what you do, executing on what you do to where it's not your mom or your best friend that's like, oh yeah, you should work with Ryan. He's trying to build his business. No, it's like, I've worked with Ryan, or I spoke with somebody that's done deals with Ryan, and holy crap, the amount of improvement it was over the other person I worked with in the past, or the stories I've heard in the past, I would never work with somebody else. The testimonials, the word of mouth, people talking about you on the phone, at meetups, on social media, all of these things are a ridiculous compounding agent for your business. And if you're not taking advantage of those things, then guess what? I'm gonna say the same thing I said earlier. Go do stuff. Go do stuff and form the relationships with people that are loyal to you and will share what you're doing the same way you'd be willing to do for other people, right? When your friend opens up a business, there's nothing you're more happy to do than let other people know about it, right? Go buy their product. It's great. I love it. You want people doing that same thing for you. And guess what? Don't be afraid to ask, right? If you crush it, if you perform like you say you can do, then that's perfect, right? You can then say, hey, do you mind letting other people know? Or if anybody ever asks, I would love it if you could put in a good word. Like, it's not gonna hurt you to do that. It's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna help build your business. One of the principles that I've learned about business is like the first 5, it's called, right? Which is basically doing your services for free for people in exchange for them giving you testimonials and sharing the results. It's the perfect storm, right? You get other people the results that they're looking for so that they can share that with other people. And who gives a crap if you're making money off of it, getting rich off of it, if it's perfect? Nobody cares. What matters is that you're building up that reservoir of actual, helpful, pertinent information that's going to build you up and let other people know, not you, right? Because you can say whatever the heck you want, but somebody else, now you're adding another layer of validity to it. And so principle number 6 is that you have to have other people talking positively about your business. Go get some positive word of mouth. Okay, principle number 7 is that you actually need to know your audience. And when I say your audience, your customer, however you want to describe it, you need to know who that person is. Not just know, but like know who the person is that you're trying to reach. And this is, I think, the great equalizer when it comes to people saying, the harder you work, the better the results you'll get. And on the one hand, like I've said earlier, like volume is a killer thing, right? Doing more and doing it better, it's going to be great for your business. But if you're doing more of the wrong thing, then Lord willing, you are keeping track of your data and your statistics to say, you know what? I 10x'd the amount of inputs I was putting in and freaking nothing happened on the back end. And you know why that is? Because you're probably targeting the wrong people. Now here's the cool thing. It is super easy to find your target audience through a little bit of research, a little bit of trial and error, right? If you are looking for a person that wants to buy a basketball, right? If you're looking to sell basketballs to people, and you're trying to find who's my audience. And the first thing that you do is you go to a group of people that have never played basketball before, or basketball is not the main sport in their country or their area or something. And you're like, come buy this basketball. And they're like, we don't even have a basketball hoop. What the heck are we gonna do with that basketball? You're gonna come home and say, oh, well, I can't make any basketball sales. Nobody wants my basketball, right? But then you go to a freaking basketball court at the park where everybody's sitting around and their basketball popped, and you're like, hey, buy my basketball. Boom, they buy your basketball. Why? Because that was your audience, right? Those people wanted and needed a basketball, and you provided the exact solution to their problem that they were looking for. You had to know who the audience was, and you're not gonna just be able to pull this out of the top of your hat, right? I'm gonna be honest, I still struggle with this sometimes when it comes to being as specific as I would like to be with knowing who my audience is. But the better you know your audience, the less time you can spend with the same amount of effectiveness, right? If I speak to 100 people about doing deals and only 50 of them are qualified, then in my head, I'm like, well, I reached out to 100 people and I closed 10 of them, right? But if I had only reached out to the more specific group of 50, I can still close 10 of those 50 people, but instead I do it with half the work, right? And that's one of the most important things. A lot of the questions that I get from people when they're trying to grow their business, they're kind of trying to bootstrap, right? The brutal way, which is like manual outreach. Again, trading time for money early on, which is a great way to start. I think it's brutal, but it's a great way to start. But they're just going for the brute force, right? They're just counting the numbers. I've reached out to 100 people, 500 people, 1,000 people. But if you don't narrow down who it is you're reaching out to, then what are you really accomplishing? Are you just checking off a box? Or are you actually getting the results that you're looking for? And so when we talk about narrowing down your focus, right? Knowing who to speak to, speak with people, interview them, ask them what they're looking for. Talk to other people who have been successful in your field. Funnel hack, as it's called, right? Look at what other people's websites are saying, what their videos are saying, and what they're actually doing, what the actions are, not just their words, because people can say some ridiculous things, right? Not just their words, but what are the actions behind their words? How are they backing things up? And what can you learn from those things? Because if you can nail down your target, not mine, not somebody else's, but your target, then you are going to go 10 times further, 10 times faster. And guess what? If you don't nail it down, then you still have made progress because you figured out who it's not, right? When I was getting started, I didn't start out thinking I was going to be an entrepreneur, right? And this was not that long ago. When I was in college, I was looking to become an electrical engineer, right? And every summer I got an internship. And my dream was like, get an internship, find the thing that I want to do, and be like, dude, that internship was amazing. This is what I want to do for my job. And funny enough, every year at the end of summer, all I thought to myself is, well, that was an epic failure because I hated that job, right? And in my head, I was like, I'm not making any more progress towards what I want to do because I keep just finding these jobs that I hate. But the reality was, and I didn't even understand this at the time, right? It took years to finally figure this out. And it wasn't even that long ago, that by doing all of those different jobs and figuring out that I hated them all, it wasn't a failure because what I learned is that I just hated sitting at a desk doing that work. That's what I learned. I hated sitting at a desk and doing that work. So guess what? Now I don't sit at a desk all day and work at a W-2 job. Was it worth it? Yeah, I learned a ton, right? I figured out what didn't work for me. And so if you mess up, if you reach out to the wrong person, they're like, why the heck are you trying to sell me this? Why the heck are you trying to do business with me, right? Then you're like, whoops, maybe that wasn't the right guess. That's okay. Let's move on to the next one. And you still solve the problem. So narrow down, especially when you're getting started, so that you are not overdoing the amount of work it takes to find the same level of success. Niche down who it is you're talking to and what it is you're saying to those people. And if you get it wrong, then guess what? You can just jump to the next one and try it again. And eventually, if you do that enough and you continue to put in the work, you'll find the results you're looking for. And our 8th principle that we're gonna cover, and one of my favorites, I think one of the biggest game changers this year for me, is simply finding more ways to win. Now, here's what I mean by that. If somebody is specifically looking for their earnest money to be funded on a real estate deal, right? And you go talk to that person and you say, hey, do you need your earnest money funded? And they say no. And the only thing that you are offering, the only problem that you are solving is earnest money, then that's it. That's the end of the road, right? There's nothing else you can do. But if instead you expand what you're doing, you find more ways to win, more ways to measure, more ways to fulfill, more problems that can be solved, or a broader range of problems that can be solved with your solution. If you find those things, then there is fundamentally more ways to win, right? And this is something huge that I learned this year, again, with my funding business, was I started with one thing, right? And then people said, well, I don't need earnest money deposit funded, but I need double closings funded. And I was like, oh, I don't do that, right? I just do earnest money deposits. And then as I progressed, I was like, well, I could do that, right? And then when I run into one thing, if I add that, then I find another way to win, right? You don't need this, but you need this, boom. Now I can solve that solution too. If I was a one-stop shop, right? If I funded every real estate deal that ever existed, then every investor I ever spoke to that needed money of any kind, that's a dub, right? I'm always winning because I'm offering more. I'm doing more. There's more solutions to the problems that people are having. I'm always finding them, right? And so what's my happy medium? Well, it's just finding more ways to win, right? And that can be through offering more, and it can also be through measuring more, right? If you're somebody who's looking to make your first dollar outside of your W-2, if you haven't made that dollar and that's the only thing you're measuring against, then you're going to start to get upset about where you're at, right? You're gonna feel demoralized that you're not getting to the goal that you have. But if instead you've got 3 other goals on the way, right? Post your first video online, right? Work on a weekend maybe, I don't know what it is. Connect with 50 people that are doing what you wanna do and study their success, right? And learn from them. If you're doing those things, then those are wins along the way, right? You're finding more ways to win. And so it's a double-edged sword. You're measuring more to find more ways to win. You're also offering more so that if you get shut down on one thing, there's another thing right around the corner. That's why you see a lot of people, as they establish one business, start to branch out to solve all of the problems, right? If I teach you guys how to find leads in the transactional funding space, the next thing I might do is help you out with creating your content, right? Or getting your own contracts, or building your own team, a CRM, right? All of these things. There are more ways to win, more ways to help solve the problem at hand. And successful people, they find more ways to win. They don't accept failure. They don't accept losing. And fundamentally speaking, this year, what I found was that if I just keep pushing forward and just keep doing something, I will find more ways to win, or I'll meet people along the way that will help me find more ways to win. It's a focused approach, but also a flexible approach on success. And if you find more ways to win, then you will do a lot more winning than you will losing. Keep in mind, you're gonna do more losing overall, right? Entrepreneurship 101, welcome to life. But if you can find more ways to win, then you can balance out that scale a little bit more, tip the scales in your favor, and give yourself that ounce of momentum that you need to keep pushing. And the 9th principle that I want to talk about with you guys is, simply put, believing that you can do it. The belief that you can do what you put your mind to do. Because I'm going to be honest with you guys, I didn't envision basically anything that I do now 12 months ago. I didn't. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know what it would look like, but I have written down and I have recorded verbally saying, I believe that I am going to make $1 million this year. I told my wife multiple times, to which she did not believe me, that we're gonna make $1 million this year. And her question was always, how? And I said, I don't know how, but I know we're gonna do it because I've learned from the right people. I've seen people do it, and I know I can do what they did too, right? They didn't do anything special. They just kept pushing. They followed these principles, right? And so I found these principles, and I learned from these principles so that I could believe first and then go take action. As confused as I might have been, go take action and find the answers to the problems along the way, because entrepreneurship is simply solving the biggest problem and then moving to the next. The problems will never end, but the solutions will also keep coming if you surround yourself with the right people and you just don't stop. So if you can look back on the things that I've talked about in this video and write them down and compare them to what you're doing now and see where you're lacking and what areas you need improvement in. These are in order of the things that I have implemented in my business and in my life. If you can do those things, then you're going to get where you want to go 10 times faster, and you will be able to find success in whatever way you defined it in 2025. So I hope that this helps you, maybe gives you some motivation, some clarity on where you're lacking or struggling. If that's been helpful, really appreciate it if you throw a like on this video. It helps me out with the algorithm. Not a lot of people watch my stuff, but I've had a pretty transformational last 12 months and I would love to share it more with other people. So if you can hit the like button, and if this has been really helpful to you, you can subscribe to my channel. I talk about all about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and how you can do it too. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video.